Proposition 5 changes requirements for certain property owners to transfer their property tax base to replacement property. Initiative Constitutional Amendment and Statute. Plain language, loosen property tax laws so that people over 55 and the severely disabled can move houses without increasing property taxes. The background. Local governments, like cities, counties, schools, and special districts, receive a major portion of their funding from property taxes, over $60 billion per year. When a person buys a house, they are taxed a certain percentage of the house's purchase price. The typical property tax rate is 1.1%. Once you buy the house, your property tax remains based on whatever price you purchased the property for, even years later, though it can be increased up to 2% per year for inflation. This is great so long as you stay in your house, because if you stay in the house for, say, 20 years, you're still paying a property tax that is roughly based on a 20-year-old purchase price. However, when you decide to move, you now have to pay the tax rate based on a modern purchase price. So even though you may be moving to a property of similar value, your property tax will be much higher because you're no longer paying property taxes based on the house price from 20 years ago. So to help people in certain situations, there is a special rule that allows homeowners over 55, severely disabled homeowners, or homeowners whose property has been impacted by a natural disaster or contamination to transfer their current property tax rate to the next house they buy if it's in the same county. Some counties even allow you to carry this property tax rate across county lines. 10 counties allow this, but you can only do this once in your lifetime. Also, if you move to a more expensive property, the rule doesn't apply and you must pay the full property tax for the new property. Owners eligible for this special transfer of property tax rate are called eligible homeowners. Here are some other facts that come into play for this proposition. 1. Cities and counties collect taxes on the transfer of homes and other real estate. These transfer taxes raise about $1 billion for cities and counties. 2. County assessors determine the taxable value of the property. Statewide, county spending for assessors' offices totals about $600 million per year. 3. California taxes personal incomes. The state collects a personal income tax on income earned within the state. Taxable income can include profits from selling a home. The personal income tax raises over $80 billion per year. Long story short, Californians over 55, severely disabled Californians, and natural disaster victims are allowed to carry their current property tax rate to their new home when they move. They can only do this once. Proposition 5 seeks to broaden this special rule even further to, in effect, allow this, I'll call it a loophole, to apply to more instances. What does it do? Eligible homeowners would now be able to move anywhere in the state and apply these rules, instead of just within their current county. Rather than only being able to use these rules once per lifetime, eligible homeowners would be able to move as many times as desired and keep applying these rules. Currently, when an eligible homeowner buys a cheaper home, they can transfer their current rate, but it doesn't get reduced just because they bought a home with a lower property value. But under Prop 5, this would change, and the new property tax would be adjusted downward to match the lower property value percentage. These rules would now even apply to more expensive homes. There's a bit of a complicated math maneuver to explain this, but basically, eligible homeowners would pay a property tax that's higher than their old home, but lower than if they were to buy a more expensive home under current law. These details aren't really important to understanding this proposition, but I'll put up this little aid by the legislative analyst for if for some reason you really feel like you would like to understand this. You can pause and study. But as for the rest of us, fiscal impact. The fiscal impact of Prop 5 would be very complicated and speculative. This is because a law like this creates a host of incentives that influence public behavior. The legislative analyst lays out a number of possibilities that could arise if Prop 5 is passed. We don't need to get too caught up in theory and speculation, so I'm going to go through this really quickly just to give you an idea of the sorts of things we're dealing with. Every year, 85,000 eligible homeowners move to different houses and as a result pay higher property taxes. All this extra tax money would go away under Prop 5. Because there would be no property tax increase for doing so, many more eligible homeowners may choose to move, thereby increasing demand for new homes and home prices, and thus creating more property tax revenue. County assessors will have to develop new calculations and protocols to keep up with the Prop 5 homebuyers. Because more people will likely buy and sell homes, they will have more personal income tax liabilities from the profits of these home sales. So the bottom line is this. Schools and other local governments will likely lose over $100 million per year from the lowered property tax revenue if Prop 5 passes. The state in turn will end up having to pay over $100 million per year to cover these losses due to current law, and over time this would be expected to increase to about $1 billion per year. That would be less than 1% of the state budget. From Yes on Prop 5. Prop 5 gives all seniors 55 and over and severely disabled people the right to move without a 100%, 200%, or even 300% penalty. Prop 5, the Property Tax Fairness Initiative, eliminates the moving penalty that exists today in order to protect seniors 55 plus and severely disabled people who want to move to safer, more practical homes or closer to their families rather than being stuck in homes too big or with too many stairs, etc., because they cannot afford to move because their property taxes could skyrocket if they move to a new home elsewhere in California. This could happen even if they move to a less expensive home. Prop 5 limits the property tax penalties they could face if they purchase another home in any county of the state. Prop 5 does not raise the cost of housing, take funding away from public safety or public schools. An economic review of Prop 5 conducted by two of the top economists in the state concluded that allowing seniors, the severely disabled, and disaster victims to move would likely increase tax revenues and provide more funds for vital public services. If seniors can move to a new primary residence that better fits their needs, such as downsizing after children move away, their old home will generate more tax revenue once sold to new buyers. I want to stop and thank you for watching my videos. It takes a tremendous amount of time and energy, and I'm happy to know that people are benefiting. If you support nonpartisan, independent election support, please consider donating at one of the links below to keep these videos coming. This message is brought to you by Americans for Love, Peace, and Joy. From No on Prop 5. Prop 5 does nothing to help most low-income seniors, but does help the corporate real estate interests who are funding it. We urge a no vote on Prop 5. It will make things worse. What Prop 5 will do. Prop 5 will further raise the cost of housing. It will lead to hundreds of millions of dollars and potentially $1 billion in local revenue losses for our public schools. Prop 5 will cost local services, including fire, police, and healthcare, up to $1 billion in revenue losses. Prop 5 gives a huge windfall to the real estate industry, the only sponsor of the initiative. We urge a no vote on Prop 5 because of what it does not do. It does not build any new housing. It does not help first-time homebuyers. It does not bring down the cost of rent. It does not address homelessness. If Prop 5 is passed, a homeowner over 55 can use this tax break to keep buying more and more expensive homes over and over anywhere in California. Meanwhile, younger first-time homebuyers with less income will face higher housing prices, and renters will have an even harder time becoming homeowners. Prop 5 is opposed by teachers, nurses, firefighters, and housing and senior advocates because it's a scam. Please join us in voting no on Prop 5. I was very torn on this one, guys. Boy, was I torn. Still am, frankly. I like that this helps people keep their taxes lower and allows people more freedom to move. I'm all for tax relief in this crazy state. However, there are a couple things that stick out to me. These laws currently only apply to the elderly and the disabled. They obviously exist for people who are once in one situation, but now at this stage in their life, they have different needs and need to move or downsize or whatever. I think that's the intent of the law. However, Prop 5 allows them to just bounce around willy-nilly all over the state, buying any house anywhere as long as they want at 20, 30, or 50-year-old property tax values. The problem with this is that property taxes aren't supposed to be this forever stamp that you buy once and then you have a lifetime pass at the 1962 property values. We technically should be paying tax on whatever the current value of the property is. So they already got a break by paying old property tax rates for decades, but I think that this forever pass is just going a little too far. Current tax law already allows one move, but why should it cover more expensive homes and multiple homes? If you're moving multiple times to more expensive homes, you clearly aren't the intended recipient of this tax break. Meanwhile, everyone else has to pay the current rates when they want to buy a new home. So the law then becomes this: everybody under 55 has to get beaten and shredded by property taxes, but once you turn 55, whee, do whatever you want. That just doesn't make complete sense. Moreover, they're going to have to make up the losses in tax revenue somehow, and it's probably going to be by some stupid new tax that we all have to pay for, so that everyone else who's over 55 can just move wherever they want and buy their mansions everywhere. Not that that's really what they're going to be doing, I'm just saying. I think this will negatively impact the schools and other government agencies who need that property tax money. I know I rail against the state government all the time, but I do believe we need a government and some sort of taxation is necessary. If we've elected to use property taxes, then this is the deal we've made. If this law only made it so that people could move their rate to anywhere in the state instead of just their own county, I would say okay. If it just allowed property taxes to adjust down with cheaper properties, I might say okay. But once it gets to this God card status, I think it's just too much. If you vote yes on Prop 5, you are voting to amend property tax laws so that homeowners over 55 and severely disabled people can maintain their original property tax basis when they move anywhere in the state and for as many times as they want. If you vote no on Prop 5, you are voting to keep the rules as they currently are in their more limited fashion. The Darryl Johnson Show says no on Prop 5.